days, there have been reports of new variants of the COVID-19 virus in South Africa and the United Kingdom.
Extra COVID restrictions come into force today. As ministers said, a new variant of coronavirus is out of control.
The events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn in the past few hours.
Now, today I'm going to touch on some topics, and I think that God timing is perfect, specifically about where we at, what's happening in the world right now. And I'm going to bring it back for a moment to India. Now, I want you to think about this throughout this word that I'm going to be teaching on today, because at the end of the presentation, I'm going to go back to this word. But as a story, I had a chance last time I was in India. We held a conference, and the conference was based on a word that God is giving almost simultaneously to Pastor Joseph, and spoke the same word almost 2 years before that on the same passage in a different way to me on Isaiah chapter 58 verse 12. And this is going to be important in the context of what we are talking about today. Now, this presentation have you seen on the screen called The Secret of Redemption. And what I'm going to do today is something special. I am going to share with you a very important message. As a matter of fact, it's so important that I'm going to share it tomorrow in Ahavat Ammi virtual synagogue internationally. But today I want to connect this word specifically also to India and to what God is doing in the world right now. I know you have a lot of questions around the pandemic, the mutations, the vaccine. Look, if you want to understand the story of what happened last year, this is a very amazing story. As you hear, my voice is still not 100% well, but if you go back 6 months ago, you could not believe it. I was at the beginning of January 2020, when the virus broke out, I completely lost my voice. And to the point the doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. If something very, very wrong with me, they start looking in my throat, trying to figure it out, and I could not regain back my voice at all, and things gotten worse and worse. And as things got worse and worse with my voice, God started to speak to me clearly in a way that in 20 years of ministry I've never heard before. It was so clear, and I didn't know what to do with this. And the last thing I wanted to do is to write a book, because writing a book is really a headache, to be honest with you. The day I picked up the pencil, really, to pen and pencil to start writing it down, is the day that God restored my voice. The very same day, the same morning, overnight, God healed it and returned my voice. And in a period of about 2 months, I wrote about 1,100 pages. Not to sound dramatic, but it is dramatic, because during this time with no voice, I see visions from heaven. Such a clear visions, such a vivid, clear pictures of the end time. And the moment I start writing it, it was like everything poured out. And in about 2.5 months, 1,100 pages were written. Now, what we have in our hands here is the Besorah According COVID-19. This is the very first 550 pages. I could not put all 1,100 pages in one volume. It would overwhelm people. This is already so exciting and overwhelming to people that we're getting contact in all over the world about this. And now it's available, of course, in India, only through Bethlehem. Bethlehem is the only community in India that will carry this. This is something we do only, especially with my students. And Pastor Joseph Jordan is responsible for Shuvu India. And I should tell you what's special about this before I start. If you look at the very first page, and now you can get it in India, and that's also an amazing story, how we get it to India and how the Lord moved, and it's really just amazing. Praise be to God. You're going to notice something right at the very beginning of the book that I like to stress to you, because this is an really historic moment. When I released the book, usually you need affirmation from people, to give you endorsement. God says, don't even ask for any endorsement. Simply release the book. But I took it to 3 people. Pastor Mark Beltz, who you know is a good friend of mine. I took it to a very well-respected Jewish historian. And I took it to an Orthodox, non-Messianic rabbi. And you should know, the name Yeshua mentioned over 400 times in the book. This book is ultimately about the coming of Yeshua. And I gave it to the Orthodox rabbi, and he called me several days after it, he and his wife, and he said, I am literally moved to tears. I am moved to tears. And as an Orthodox rabbi, as a traditional Jewish rabbi, I'm going to endorse this book. And I don't know if you can see the screen here of the book, but in Hebrew and in English, he wrote this beautiful letter in Hebrew, and we translated it also to English to your screen. And look at this, he signed the book he's giving the validation to this book as an Orthodox Jewish rabbi, a book that has to do with our Yeshua. I want you to digest what I'm telling you right now. This is not Messianic rabbis. And I can tell you now, really tonight, that quite a few Orthodox rabbis are reading the book, and more endorsement coming. At this point, we have at least 30 or 40 of leading scholars in the world that both Messianic Christians and Orthodox all said, yes, this is something very special. And what the rabbi wrote, it's unbelievable. It's the very first time in Jewish history that I believe that a Messianic Jewish book was endorsed by Orthodox rabbis. Now, I want you to get this book for several reasons. And the number one reason is you have a major role to play in these last days, okay? This is not one of those books that you're going to read as from academia. This book going to hit you in the heart, and it's going to change your life drastically. And if you don't believe me, go to Amazon and we put it in Kindle version and see what other people write. It's one thing I tell you, this is the author, but read what others write. Go and read it, all this endorsement, you will be stunned. If this does not move you for extreme actions in the last days, I believe that nothing will. So you can go to Good News COVID-19 if you are anywhere, Europe or South America or North America. But now we got the books in India, friends. And Pastor Joseph John, I got to tell you, he labor. He's not making money here. He labor to serve India because there is a word that was released over India specifically that now we're going to see the fulfillment. I'm even amazed seeing this event here. This is a Messianic synagogue, the only Messianic synagogue in India. No, not Hebrew root. Our real Messianic synagogue in India is being birthed out right now. And I hope everybody will go today. Support it. Get the book. Support the work that is being done in India. You're going to understand why this is so critical. And could not be any better timing to talk about the topics that we're going to talk about today in the light of the Torah portion. We are in Parashat Bo. And again, write your questions and submit them in the end of my presentation. I'll be able to take some questions. I dedicate this shiur this evening to Pastor Joseph John and Susan John, and for the amazing community of all of the beloved Talmidim. You should know that the Torah is ready. And as soon as we can, we are going to bring the Torah to India. So please believe and pray for those days ahead of us. We bless the Lord for all of the laborers in India in those days. And may God use the community, use the work that we're doing right now to bring the name of Yeshua to the 1 billion people all around us. Thank you, Lord, for this amazing opportunity to build a community in India. And for us in Yeshivat Shuvu International, we are just blessed to be part of this. So, I want to get to the topic this evening. When we think about the term redemption, I think everybody watching me right now understand that we are in this time that is called Acharit Ayamim. In Hebrew, it's called Acharit Ayamim, and sometimes it's defined, it's translated as the end days, but it doesn't mean the end days. This term Acharit Ayamim is mentioned in the Bible several places, and it's literally mean Achar Ayamim, after the days. Well, you probably asked the question, after what days? Which day are we talking about? After the days of the coming of the Messiah. Now, you have to understand that we are talking about Acharit Hayamim. If I ask you the question today, what do you mean by Acharit Hayamim, or about the redemption, you say the coming of the Messiah. But it's a mistake to look at that in this term of the coming of the Messiah, although the climax of the end of the, let's call it the Messianic era, is the coming of the Messiah. There is things that are going to happen in the world that are going to be built up to it. They're going to be building and up to it. Now, the prophets of Israel defined those times as the times of birth pangs. Israel always is defined as a birth pain, as a woman in labor that's going through a birth pangs and so forth. You see it in Isaiah, in Jeremiah, even in the Torah itself. It's mentioned Israel as a woman who's giving a birth into a child. Now, where we at right now in the world, we're entered to the final round of those birth pangs before the coming of the Messiah. Now, one of the questions we need to ask ourselves, what is need to happen in the world in order to the child, or in this case the Messiah, to come to the world. We all understand that there's a lot of things that are moving, and things are moving very fast right now, and we need to look at this concept, and this concept, the birth, the birthing process has a name. The birthing process called Geula. It's kind of like coming and coming and coming, and the question is, how is the Geula going to be complete? How it's going to come to the end of it, and what does it have to do with you and I? Now pay attention, we are in Parashat Bo this morning, and we're going to look specifically at that, because there is a profound word for you in Parashat Bo. And I pray that the Holy Spirit speak to you this evening and this morning, if you are in India, wherever you are, that the Spirit of God will minister to you. The very first place that we see the word redemption mentioned is important. If you want to understand a term, there's a type of hermeneutical method in Judaism that teaches us, if you want to understand a meaning of a word, a meaning of a term, see the very first time that it is mentioned in the scripture. The very first time that we see this term redemption mentioned, it is in the book of Exodus. The book of Exodus, known in Hebrew as the name Shmot or Names, is the book, it's also known by the name the book of redemption. Why? We are looking in this story through the story of the redemption out of Egypt. And this is important for us to look at it. And I want you to notice, because tonight, in this secret of redemption, I want to look with you, try to understand, first of all, where we are in redemption, and what is going to be happening in the world more than likely, and what can we do to bring, or if can we do anything to bring Messiah to the world in a quicker way. In essence, we need to understand what is our role, what is God's role, and where we are in this prophetic map. Now, I'm going to make a premise up front to you. You and I, just as Messiah being born, you and I in some ways, because Messiah living in us, you and I are this child that's going to be born. In essence, the function of the birth of Messiah have to be related to the function that you and I are going to be born. So there's some parallels in that we're going to be looking at that. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I cannot obviously give the entire big book in a day or in a week, even if I'll be here in a month. But one of the things that Pastor Joseph is going to start to do with you in the upcoming weeks, I have given him the authorization to start to slowly teach the book, and to start to do a prophecy corner. So we will take you through all of those things together. We have to understand it. And I pray this evening that this spiritual understanding will come to you. Now, this term redemption mentioned the very first time. The term redemption is that Hebrew word geula. It's come from the word gaal, which means that there is a redeemer. If there is a redemption, there is also a redeemer. The very first time that we encounter this term is right there in the middle of the story of the Exodus in Egypt. Let's go together to Exodus chapter 6, verse 6, and read together. Listen to what it says. It says, and if you have my slides, you can go there. It says, in the very first slide, it says, Lechen emor libnei Israel, ani Adonai, והוצאתי אתכם מתחת סבלות מצרים, והצלתי אתכם מעבודתם, וגאלתי אתכם בזרוע נטויה ובשפטים גדולים. Say therefore to the Israelite people, this is God's message to Moses. Exodus chapter 6, verse 6, he says, I am the Lord, I will free you from the labor of the Egyptian and deliver you from the bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and through an extraordinary chastisement. Now, I want you to pay attention to the words in the yellow on the screen. Is the word uga'alti etchem. Okay, you can come back to me. And the word uga'alti etchem, very important, is meaning that God is the Redeemer. The question I want you to focus on tonight is, who is the Redeemer that is going to be redeeming you? And God says here, I am the Redeemer. In essence, say all of the redemption depends upon me. Redemption depends upon me and me alone. And today the church, for the most part, is looking for a Redeemer. I'm hearing and again right now this popular message that's running all around Christian circles. We are expecting to be redeemed. We are expecting to be raptured. We're expecting those things anytime now, because God is going to redeem us. And that's actually what it says here in the book of Exodus. It's appeared that God is saying, I am the only Redeemer, and redemption come only through me. And a matter of fact, if you go to the next verse, let's go to the next slide, we will read this together. And he said, and I am to take you, look at this, Woody, I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God. And you shall know that I am the Lord, am your God, who freed you from the labors of the Egyptian. Again, I want you to notice what it says on the screen in the yellow. It says here in the text, I am the God who freed you. This is important. You can come back to me. In both verse 6 and verse 7, the message that given by God is very clear. God is the Redeemer, and redemption happened through God and God alone. Well, if God is the Redeemer and he's the only one who brings the redemption of the world, the question you have to ask, we are a people of a covenant. We are a people of a covenant. Well, what can we do if all the redemption or everything is depending upon God? And this is something that I want to look at together. So if you go to the next slide, we are going to look this evening with you at the mystery. You can go to the next slide. We will look at what is Geula. What is redemption? How redemption coming to the world? This is what I am going to look with you this evening at. Now we are going to go and look at 5 or 6 different principles that are going to help us to define what's Geula. And the reason we need to do that is we are right now in the process of Geula. We are in the process of the birth pangs, of the end of the birth pangs. And you and I need to know what can be done to push a little bit more to see Messiah coming to the world. People ask me all the time the question, do you believe that Messiah will see Messiah in our lifetime? Do you believe that we're going to see him? And the answer is actually, it depends. It depends on each and every one of us today. And that's what I want to look at. So what is the blueprint for the redemption? Let's start with this. In this Torah portion, we're seeing Israel leaving Egypt. Did you know that God has given us a blueprint for redemption? Listen to the words of the prophet Micah, as he described for us the redemption. Let's look together in Micah 7:15, and it says, כימי צאתך מארץ מצרים הראינו נפלאות. I will show him wondrous deeds as in the days when you came out of the land of Egypt. Brothers and sisters, this is a critical verse for us to understand. This is a critical verse for us to understand. You see the Hebrew here, the very first letter, you remember Hebrew is right to left, and if you look at the very letter, it's appearing in white, and then you see the yellow, it's the letter Chaf. When you put a Chaf with a little dot underneath it, is pronounced Ki. Ki mean as of. It does not say, I will show you wonders, as in, it's actually, you read literally in Hebrew, as in the past, I will show you in the future. When you put the chaf before the words, it's mean I am speaking. Thank you for highlighting it on the screen. It's mean in the future, the redemption in the future going to be, and again, look at the yellow, yemei, and then the next word, setcha. As in the days you left Egypt, it will happen in the future, which is critical. I want to stop there, go to the next slide, and I want you to put the very first principle into your mind today. Go to the next one. Principle Aleph, if you don't mind bringing the Aleph. Here you go. Redemption is continuous. Redemption is a process. Rather than looking at redemption as a one-time event, this is a mistake to look at a redemption as a one-time event. It is continuous. Let me ask you a question for a moment. When did the Israelites, and you can come back to me, when did the Israelites went out, when were they redeemed in the first process? When do you say that they're redeemed? Now, some people say the redemption happened here in Exodus chapter 12. They are leaving Egypt. And I'm going to tell you something. I flat out disagree. They are leaving Egypt, but their mind is still Egyptian. They have not been redeemed. Okay, so some people said, well, they have been redeemed when they arrived to when they arrived to Mount Sinai and received the Torah. Really? They ran away from receiving the Torah, and immediately after receiving the Torah, or during this time they received the Torah, they made a golden calf. They were not redeemed in any stretch of their imagination. So some people say, no, the redemption happened when they are outskirts of the land, when they are sending the spies into the land. I said, impossible. They gave a bad report. Redemption was not complete. So when redemption took place, the redemption take place. There is a finality to redemption. Is when they enter into the land. That's when the redemption is complete. And you and I today are standing right outside the land, and we don't even understand that, how near redemption is. I know it's something that is in your mind right now. You say redemption is near, redemption is near, redemption here. But I'm telling you something. We are standing right outside the land today. Redemption are going to come much quicker than any of us can imagine. So this is very important for us to look at that together, that when I say this to you, it's continuous. The redemption started when they left Egypt, continue with Mount Sinai, continues all redemptions. When the redemption started, what if I tell you that even in the Torah portion this week, the Torah portion prophesy of another redemption? Go back to the slide for a moment. Go back to the slide for one moment. Here you go. Stop right there. He says, in the days of Egypt, as is in the day of Egypt, I will show in the future miraculous things. Well, that's mean that notice what he's talking about. He's talking about one redemption. He's not talking about two redemption, three redemption, four redemption. But wait a second, we left Egypt, went into the land. Well, that's not the way God views redemption. For God, redemption did not start in Matthew chapter 1:1 when Yeshua was born. The redemption started with Moses, and the redemption started before Moses. The redemption started with Abraham. You see, for example, when you look at Aaron, the high priest, Aaron make the golden calf, and then as he make the golden calf, which is, by the way, not golden, as I explained in the book, how come he was able to inaugurate? Under what authority Aaron was able to get inaugurated? If you ever wonder this question, the rabbis teach us that only because he was entering into the Abrahamic covenant, he received the merit of the Abrahamic covenant to enter into the Mosaic covenant. The Mosaic covenant also gave the merit now to enter to the new covenant. That's why the new covenant make this connection. Rav Shaul, Apostle Paul, he said, no, you have to go back to the Abrahamic covenant. You have to go back to the Abrahamic covenant. It is critical in order for us to get the continuous process. Look, it did not start when Yeshua died on the cross. Why do you think Yeshua says in John 5:46, if you believe Moses and the prophet, you're going to believe me? Because covenant is something that is complete. Now, this is very important. So how should we view redemption? Imagine this book right now, The Good News According to COVID-19. There are chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. Each book presents a different facet of the covenant, of the redemption in the last days. Is it one book? Yes, it is one book made out of very different chapters. that kind of building upon itself. That is the way you should look at a covenant. The covenant. God called it the covenant. There's different chapters, and we are entering right now to the last chapter of the book. Now I'm going to tell you something about the last chapter of the book. I know a lot of you listen to a lot of teachers trying to prophesy that the vaccine is the mark of the beast, or this is this, and this is that, and this is this. Let me tell you something. They're all lying to you. They all are a bunch of liars. And I'm going to tell you why. The prophet Jeremiah said in the word that a prophecy that, like we read in Isaiah, Jeremiah, Revelation, that they have to do with destruction, calamity, the end of time, does not, listen to me carefully, does not has to be fulfilled. He does not have to happen. Just because you read something bad in the Bible, he does not have to take place. It is always a function of the reaction of the people who can defer judgment. And this is one of the things that I drive in the book, and I highlight this to you so you understand this. In the very last chapter, and I do believe that we're entering into the very last chapter. It's one of those books, if you remember as a child, you open a book and it's like a mystery book, and it says, if you want to go left, go to page 50. If you want to go right, go to page 100. And there's a different story. There's a different story path to this thing. What determined the last chapter in the book, brothers and sisters, listen to me very carefully, is you and I. You and I determine the last chapter of the book. And I believe today that the last chapter of the book is white blank, and God has given us today this pen. And I'm going to tell you in a second how he give us this pen. This pen have a name. This pen have a catalyst. It's you and I, and the COVID-19. Yes. I'm proving it to you straight from the scriptures. Is the pen that God has given us right now. What you going to write? What you going to make out of this COVID-19? That is going to depend at you and I. Do not listen to teachers who telling you that they know what ahead. Nobody know what ahead, because redemption is a continuous process. Just like the Israelites going through the wilderness, and their choices determined their fate in the wilderness. You see, their choices made their fate in the wilderness. This journey, Bamidbar, in the wilderness, from the Exodus until they entered to the land, that's what we need to focus right now on, and the choices that we are going to be making. Let's go back to the next slide together and read this verse again. We will go back to this verse. So redemption is continuous process where the final, let me just say this, when the final redemption is going to be determined by what we are choosing. Let's look together this. Go again to the next slide. Again, let's go back to this verse. It says, I will show him wondrous deeds. Okay, I want you to look at this. When you use the letter Chaf again, and maybe we can highlight it one more time on your screen, it's apply, it's resembling something that already took place. You see, when you say Ke, can you put the letter Chaf before it? God is saying to us something important. He's saying, I am going to give you a prototype. There is a prototype for the future. You see, when it says, I will show you wondrous, again, this term is important. He's saying, I will show, that is the future. So you're seeing here both at the beginning of the verse with the letter Chaf, you see the past, as of the past. And then if you go to the fifth word in the text, the word Ereinu, and you look at the Aleph with Apatach, the Aleph with a thank you right there, it's Arenu. I will show you in the future, which means the future redemption. I want you to understand. You can come back to me. I want you to understand this today. You don't have to guess what the redemption is looking like. The future redemption going to resemble the past redemption. We already have the blueprint. The blueprint is given us in the book of Exodus. Moses prophesies everything that happened into the world because here you go. I want you to write this. This is principle bet of understanding prophecy. Friends, what I'm teaching you today is a fundamental things that you have to understand. If you understand, look what's happening right now in the world. We are going through plagues. Let me ask you a question. What happened right before redemption that came to the world? What happened right before redemption came to the house of Israel in the book of Exodus? Plagues. If you ever wondered yourself a question, why did plagues were needed? We're going to deal with that in a minute. But I want you to notice the pattern. The plagues themselves led ultimately to the redemption of the beginning redemption of the house of Israel. Today, God is bringing plagues upon the world because he is preparing to the world not for the Antichrist. He is preparing the world for the coming of the Messiah. And I want to challenge this notion. A lot of you don't understand it, but I'm going to tell you what the prophet Isaiah said. And the question is, do you want to heed this evening? Do you want to listen to the prophet of Israel? He said the following, I'm the creator of good, I'm the creator of evil. I'm the creator of light, and I'm the creator of darkness. Everything, friends, everything is orchestrated by God. But you say, well, Rabbi Shapira, I don't understand. The virus is clearly a man-made. It doesn't matter if the virus is man-made or not. God is the supervisor of the world. He is, as we sang today, he is the Adon Olam. He is the master of the world. God allowed things to happen because God has a plan. And this plan is just what we read. Remember what we read in Exodus 6:6 and 6:7? He said, I bring all of those things, so I will be with you. We have a plan to tabernacle with us, to be united with us, to join with us. Because that's what was broken inside the garden. And here in Micah 7:15, the prophet says, listen. You don't have to look so far. Look at the story of Exodus. That's the way the Messiah is going to come to the world. And if this is true, God is asking yourself the question, why did God brought the plagues upon Egypt? He brought the plague over Egypt and over Israel, but really they didn't touch Israel, right? He brought this plague over Egypt and asked yourself the question, couldn't God just snap the finger and Israel is out? Why did it went through 10 plagues? I want you to think about this for a minute, because this is the blueprint for the coming of the Messiah in the last day. He brought the 10 plagues upon Egypt because he had a plan. He wanted the Egyptians to come out themselves, the rabbi said. The plagues were not that the Israelites will come out. The plagues were that the Egyptians, representing the nations, that the nations will come out. And you probably ask the question, come out from what? Coming out of Egypt. What does that represent? We're going to look at that this evening together. We need to understand what is happening right now in the world in a spiritual sense. But make yourself a bullet number 2, if you don't mind bringing my slides. Bullet number 2 about redemption. This is a big one. Redemption is cyclical rather than a linear process. Friends, this is exactly what the prophet Micah is speaking about. This is absolutely amazing. When we look at redemption, as King Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. It is going to resemble what Israel examined in what they took place when they're all the story out of Egypt. And the same is true today. If you want to see what is happening, the mutation, the redemption process does not just talk about the mutation. We see the vaccine, we see all of those things in the Torah, friends, to the T. And the word that I want you to understand is, don't look and don't predict, don't try to prophesize. Go back and look whatever in the story of Exodus, and you will be able to understand the complete picture. Okay, you can come back to me. Here we go. We are now getting somewhere to understand the Geula. I want to go now to the third point that we are going to look at together. This is important. Again, Micah 7:15 is giving us a complete blueprint in understanding it. And if everything is cyclical, and if there is plagues right before the coming of the Mashiach, what we are experiencing right now is the plagues. It's really indeed the plagues. And I want to challenge you this evening, friends, to come out, to understand why God is doing what He is not destroying the world. He is giving us an act of mercy. Believe it or not, the act of the plagues over Egypt was an act of mercy over Egypt, because He's given 10 plagues to come and join themselves to the house of Israel. Now look at the third principle of redemption with me. Let's go back to the same passage again, bring it up, the next page. And it says again, let's go back to Micah 7:15. It says, there we go. It said, I will show him wondrous things as the day when he sailed from the land of Egypt. Now, I want you to notice the Hebrew again. Maybe you can bring this handy dandy tool one more time. And first of all, look at the last word. Let's look at the very last word. God said, what I will show them? I will show them miracles. Look at this word, miracle. Hebrew is a very wonderful language because each word have 3 root letters. What's the root letters of this word? Miracles. It's the second letter is Pei. The third letter is Lamed. And the fourth letter is Aleph. What word is that? Pele. The word here is the word Pele. Now, where do we see the word Pele mentioned? I'm going to give you a hint, friends. You can come back to me. A child is born unto us. A son has been given to us, and his name will be Pele. Yoetz, El, Gibor, Avi, Ad, Sar, Shalom. One of the names of the Messiah is the names Pele. What really the text is suggesting, the rabbis of Israel saying, go back to the same slide one more time. It's saying the following. Go with me. It says, Pele, I will not show them. It's not true. It's not saying I will just show them. I will show them wondrous deeds. That's a bad translation. The word before it, Erenu, it's like the word. It's come. The word before it's come from the word Re'eh. You will experience the miracles. You will experience the Pele. You will be able to experience those things. Friends, let me ask you a question. On the first Exodus, I want to give you a word today that you will take with you. You can come back to me. During the time when the first Exodus took place, where were the Israelites? Where were the Israelites? The Israelites were in a place called Goshen. Now, can you please tell me where is Goshen? If you look at the map of Egypt, nobody knows where is Goshen. And a lot of supernatural things happen in Goshen during this time. Goshen was where the Israelites were. But for example, when there was the plague of the wild beast came outside of Egypt. Listen to me carefully, friends. I need to explain to you again, because now you understand that the future redemption is going to resemble the first redemption. It says that all the wild beasts came from outside. They appeared out of nowhere. They show up somehow in Egypt. And there was, like the rabbis explained to us, there was like electric fence. Okay, like one of those doggy electric fence that they were not allowed to enter into Goshen. Not even one animal was allowed to enter into Goshen. There was here Era'enu Niflaot. There was something miraculous that took place. Matter of fact, take it a step further. During the plague of darkness, the rabbis told us that even if an Israelite was in Egypt, he was in Egypt and not in Goshen, Okay, but he was an Israelite. He was belonging to the house of Israel. There was like a lamp over his head. There was no darkness around him. In the midst of the darkness, there was light upon him. What is the prophet Isaiah tell us in Isaiah 60? He says, to rise and shine, the glory of the Lord come upon, shine upon you. Darkness will cover all the air, and upon you, the light will shine. Friends, brothers and sisters, today, if you decide to join the house of Israel, no matter what's coming ahead, no matter what plague, no matter what corona coming ahead, I want to tell you something. You will be protected because the Bible has prophesied so, and I believe in the Bible. And he say, you will experience the Messiah during these days. So what do I expect in the last days? We expect in the last days to see, this is important, we expect to see a lot of darkness, but as much as we see darkness, we're going to see more and more and more and more miracles that's going to take place in the last days. You can expect miracles in these last days, but the key is, are you willing to get out of Egypt? Are you willing to get out of Egypt? Remember something, when Israel went out of, in the story of Exodus in chapter 12, it says in Exodus chapter 12 that they left in the night. In the night. Now if you look at the Hebrew word night, is lel. It's pronounced lel. Lel is Lamed, Yod, Lamed, Lel. Lamed have a value of 30, Yod have a value of 10, and another Lamed have the value of 30. If you put them together, you get the number 70. How many years Israel has been in exile in Babylon? 70 years. You see, the story of leaving Egypt is a prophecy of all the exiles. Each and every exile is counted in the story of Egypt. Is a picture of the past, present, and future. And the message here is very, very clear. Get out before it's too late. The story of the very first Exodus is a story of God wanting to redeem all the Egyptians and giving them a choice. As God is giving the nation a choice today, whether or not they want to be redeemed, and the nations have to be making a choice. You have to be making a choice. Now, the book is called The Good News According to COVID-19, because guess what? God did not kill you. He did not destroy humanity yet. It is not too late. We are in the 7th or the 8th plague, but we are not there yet. And here's the good thing. It does not have to get to 10 plagues. We can stop this pain together. And now I want you to hear this. Step Gimel, put it on the screen. Again, I want you to take it with me and write this. This is number 3. It says, the process of redemption is going to be fueled with miracles. Where is Goshen? Goshen is in Hyderabad, India. Goshen is in Africa. Goshen, remember, Goshen is nobody know where Goshen. Goshen is the place where God put fence around. Goshen is in South America. Goshen is the place that the Shekinah is dwelling. And today I want to tell you something. You need to get to Goshen as soon as possible in these last days. I have a chapter in the book, you can come back to me, about a city of refuge. About the city of refuge. This is very important that you understand this. In the last days, God says that I am going to create these cities of refuge. Goshen was a picture of city of refuge. And today, the nation has an opportunity to enter to the city of refuge. But will they be leaving Egypt? That is the question. Even the Israelites did not want to leave Egypt. Do you know that? That the rabbis give us 3 possibilities. They said either 20%, 2% or 0.2% of the house of Israel left Egypt. They settle actually on 2%. On 2%. Most of the Israelites themselves left in Egypt. Brothers and sisters, you don't want to be left behind today. Learn something from the first redemption. Look with me. And the next thing the prophet Micah telling us, and this is a critical one where we're going to zoom in for a moment together. Look at what it says. We're going back to Micah 7:15 to the next slide. And it says, I will show his wonder in this as the days when he sailed from the land of Egypt. Now I want you to pay attention to what God is saying here. He says, I will show you wonder is in the day when you sail forth from Egypt. Now, remember in Exodus 6:6 and Exodus 6:7, I asked you the question a little while ago. Who is the one who took Israel out of Egypt? And we saw the answer already in Exodus 6:6 and 6:7. It is God himself who took Israel out of Egypt. He said so. Now we also learned that the future redemption is going to resemble the first redemption. Well, friends, go back to me. It seems to assume that all what we need to do right now is stand, twiddle our thumbs, and wait to be raptured. Exactly what the church is doing right now. Where is the church in the middle of this pandemic? All what the church is doing is praying against the virus and say, God, come and take us because we are tired of being around here. But did it dawn on you for a second something? Yeshua the Messiah is going to return as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Do you think that he's going to come back to a world that is filled with a coronavirus? Do you think that he's going to come back to a kingdom that is plagued? Absolutely no way. He has to return to a world that is ready to receive a king. That's what he's going to do. Now go back with me to the text for one moment and see what actually the Hebrew is saying. Let's go and look together. It's saying here, as in the future, as of the days, he's talking about the future. The days that I took you out of Egypt, right? That will be the futures. But look what he's saying here. I will take you out of Egypt, not as the days I took you out, but notice the Hebrew word here. Tzaddik, let's put again. We gotta learn Hebrew here together. No, the second word in the verb. Thank you. Tzaddik, Aleph, Taf, Chaf Sofit. Now that is the word go out. Go out, as when I took you out. Now go to the next slide for a second. Go another slide. Here you go. I want you to stop right there. When in the story of Exodus, when he took us out of Egypt, he uses the very first term, Hotzietecha. I took you out. You see the letter Hey and the letter Vav. That is the way God described the first redemption. And we already said, God says, I am taking you out. And if you was asking the true question, what did Israel do to deserve the first Exodus? And the answer is absolutely nothing. We were not ready. We were not even ready to come out. And when we go out, we still act like we're a bunch of Egyptians. God did it on his own, by himself. But look at the word that is used here in the book of Micah to describe the future redemption. The word is the word tse'etcha. That's the word to the right. In essence, the Hey and the Vav are missing. Now you say, why is it so important that the Torah dropped one letter? Why is it so important that Micah the prophet drops two letters? What is the big deal? Friends, when you study Torah, that's why you need to come to the yeshiva. That's why you need to learn Hebrew. Because the details tell us a story. Go back a slide, right? 2 slides. Go back 2 slides. And let's read together the verse now with Setcha. Hear it what it says. I will take you. I will not take you. See me. The word setcha mean not when I take you, when you take yourself from Egypt, I will show you miracles. Here's the way the verse actually read. In the future, as when you left Egypt, Excuse me, let me try it again. It's hard to think from Hebrew to English. In the future, when you take yourself out of Egypt, I will show you miracles. Let me say it again. I want you to hear me again. In the future, when you decide to go out of Egypt, when you start to go out of Egypt, I will show you miracles. I will show you the pellet. Brothers and sisters, you can come back to me. This is critical. This is an important point for each and every one of you to understand. The future redemption, the prophet Micah said, does not start with God, but it is rather start with each and every one of us. That's why principle number 5, you can put it right now on the screen, or principle 4, it says, I said, the process of redemption depend upon you and I, and not upon God. I want you to hear me. You can come back to me. The term here, tze'etcha, not otzietcha, say something important. When you decide to go out of Egypt, when you decide to leave, I am going to wait for you at the door. When you go out, I will wait for you with signs, wonders, and miracles. Brothers and sisters in Yeshua HaMashiach, I want to tell you this morning, Shabbat morning in Hyderabad, that if you make a decision today to go out of Egypt, you will be met with signs, wonders, and miracles. Just when Moshe had to enter into the water before this next week, Besorah, before the song of Moses was saying, before anything, Moses had to step in faith. He had to come out. Redemption in the future resembles the very first redemption, with one exception. You kick off the process, and God is going to finish the process. What if God sending plagues to the world? Brothers and sisters, what if God sent plague to the world not to kill you, not to destroy you, but actually make you to come out of Egypt? The book called The Good News According to COVID-19, because God doesn't want to kill you. He doesn't want to destroy humanity. God loved the world so much that He sent His only begotten Son. He sent the plagues to the world that you will come out of a system that called Egypt. This system have a lot of names. It's called Greek. It's called Babel. It's called Edom. It's called Christianity. It has many names. But at the days of the day, He wants you to come out. In the first redemption, in the very first redemption, He took Israel out. He started the process. You know what that's called? Israel was not ready. They did not deserve it. It's called grace. The very first. Remember what I told you a moment ago, that redemption is continuous. And remember that the redemption started really in the middle of the night. It's at the very first part right before midnight. And the second part after midnight, it's have two parts. The very first part of it, the very first redemption. Yes, the Messiah of Moses, the Torah redemption. The Torah redemption is a redemption of grace. Oh, you said, no, that's the redemption that brought the law. No, friends. It's the other way around. The Mosaic redemption is a redemption that based upon grace and grace alone, because Israel was not ready. The second redemption, the second Moses, the Messiah redemption is depend upon each and every one of you and your desire and ability to go out in these last days. The question you need to ask yourself, go to the next slide, is the question, where are you going out to? The action of going out, I want you to write yourself, go back. The action of going out depend upon each and every one of you. Come back to me for a second. You're asking the question, where am I to go out to? Where do I need to go out to? I don't know where to go. I am going to tell you something where to go. When Moses got out of Egypt, I want you to think about this for a moment with me. When Moses ran out of Egypt the very first time, after he killed the Egyptian, he ran away. And where did he run to? It says in Exodus chapter 2, verse 13 or 15, 2:15, it says he sat by the well. But if you look at the Torah, in the Hebrew, it doesn't say he sat by the well. He sat on top of the well. Now, why is it important that Moses is set on top of the well? The rabbis of Israel tell us this, that Moses sat on top of the well because inside the well, it was the picture of the Messiah. What was inside the well, they says, is also what is inside the pit. And what was inside the pit is the picture and the bones of Joseph. You are coming out to meet Joseph. Who is Joseph? Joseph is the Messiah. You are coming out today from Christianity, from Egypt, to meet Yeshua, the Messiah himself. Now, how do you find him? Well, you need somebody standing on the top of the well, somebody that hold a flag, somebody say, hey, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Who is the one who's going to be standing and say, I'm here? That's Moses. That's why Yeshua said, if you believe Moses and the prophets, you're going to believe me. Brothers and sisters, I want you to understand, you cannot come out. You will get lost in the wilderness without Moses. Without Moses, you will not be able to come out. Today, the picture of the church is a picture, oh my goodness, it's a picture to say, oh, I just need to sit down and pray for the rapture. God, come and rapture me. The words of Micah, listen to me, brothers and sisters, the word of Micah is the opposite word. Come out. Come out of the old foundation. Come out of Egypt. Come out of Rome. Come out of Babylon. And how do you need to understand the coming out too is critical. What are you coming out? What are you looking for? I want you to understand this in the context of Yeshua. If you want to understand the difference between you waiting to be redeemed and you being a redeemer yourself, and you say, oh, this is heretical. This is not biblical. Rabbi Shapira, just like the last time I was in India, you teach us Judaism. Jesus Christ, the Church of Jesus Christ, does not agree with this. Oh yeah, I remember the waves of anti-Semitism in India and the persecution of Joseph John. I remember very well those days. Where is your rapture right now, friends? You have to come out. I'm calling upon Christian pastors in India today. Leave Egypt. Come out. Micah the prophet declared it. The second redemption is started and it's finalized. And look at the word of our Lord and Savior, Yeshua the Messiah himself in Matthew 25. Let's go there. Yeshua himself said that the kingdom of heaven, look at this with me. The kingdom of heaven will be what? How it's going to come? Like 10 version, and took the lamps, and what they did? They went out to meet the bride and bridegroom. Brothers and sisters, you can come back to me. Yeshua himself has given us the greatest midrash to explain to us what does it mean to come out. Where do we come out from? You need to know where you want to come out to. You are coming out to a wedding. People do not understand this. But let me tell you something. Yeshua was a Jew. He taught as a Jew. And he understands what does it take to make a Jewish wedding. What do you need for a Jewish wedding? What do we need for a Jewish wedding? Number one, we need a bride. Number two, we need a groom. Number three, you need 10 people. 10 people in order to make a Jewish wedding. We call it in Hebrew a minyan. 10 people will need it. Now you pay attention with me very carefully right now, because the Holy Spirit is going to get a hold of you tonight in the name of Yeshua, and is going to speak to you clarity right now. Yeshua speaking about the redemption finalized, the conclusion The conclusion of this thing is a wedding that is going to take place. The reason it's using this 10 verses, that's a Jewish wedding. Now, in a Jewish wedding, the guests come to the wedding before the groom, and I explain it very clearly in the book with all the reference from the New Testament, from the Torah, from the prophets. Get it, friends? There is no rapture except to the rapture up to Jerusalem for this wedding. Nobody's going to take you anywhere. In Jewish weddings, and you see that even up to these days in Orthodox cycles, the guests arrive before the groom and definitely before the bride. And they have a job. They need to go to knock on the doors. Yes, brothers and sisters, to knock on the doors of the groom. And they need to take the groom out, the guest. This is Judaism 101. And they take the groom and they put the groom on the shoulders and they sing, David, Melech Israel. They say he's like King David. The groom is a picture of King Messiah in Judaism, and they take him to the chuppah. And then only they can go and tell the bride that the groom is already waiting for her. You see, friends, when he's talking about going out, when Micah the prophet is talking about going out, he is talking about 10 virgins who had left and they're going to meet the bridegroom. Who are those 10 virgins? Brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters, let me connect the dots for you this evening so you will understand it. Go to the next slide. Thus says the Lord of hosts, in those days, in the days of Mashiach, 10 men from every nation and every tongue will take hold. That they will take hold of every Jew in the corner, and the clerk said, let us go up with you, for we have heard that God with you. You can come back to me. The 10 virgin that Yeshua, the Messiah, is speaking about, is the nations. He's a picture of the Gentiles. Brothers and sisters, those 10 virgins who are going to bring the Messiah to the Jewish wedding. Who's the bride? The bride is Israel. The Jewish people. It's the Gentiles. The job of the Gentiles is to come out of Egypt, to seek the groom and to bring the groom. Brothers and sisters, the plague that is known as COVID-19 does not come to destroy humanity. It simply comes to turn the world today, to bring the groom to the greatest wedding, in human history. When Israel left Egypt, where did they went to? They went to a wedding in Sinai. And today, God is calling upon the Gentiles and say, when will you come out, nations, all foolish nations? Where you will come out with enough oil to bring me and put me on the shoulder. You see, the groom is receiving honor. The groom is receiving glory. And that's why it says in Matthew and in Revelation that when Messiah comes, all the saints are appearing right before him. Why? It's a prophetic picture of the wedding. They're going to come before him and say, Yeshua, Melech Israel, David, Melech Israel, of every nation and every tribe, every time. And the reason they will be there, because they knew in which door to go and knock on. They knew which village to go on. And let me tell you something, Yeshua is not belong in Goyishville. He does not belong in some Gentile village. Yeshua is born and raised in a Jewish village. And today God is calling the Gentiles to stop looking for him in Egypt. He is not found in Egypt. He is found inside Goshen. So God is moving today the Gentiles from Goshen. And yes, I want you to go today to donate to India. Donate for the work, because in a second I'm going to connect it. This is a part of a prophetic move of God in these last days. I want you to hear the word today. Those 10 virgins, only 5 of them made it. But those 10 virgins, they were there for a Jewish wedding. You hear this term again, returning to the roots of the faith, returning to the root. Why? So that you will find the one inside the well. Remember, Moses was sitting on the well. So you find him and extract him and raise him up and bring him back to the wedding with the Jewish people. So what is God is doing? God is sending a virus to the world today, so that you will be moved, so that India will be moved. Friends, don't hold out to the old foundation. You have to identify the village. So many people, I will not forget it. Last time I was in India, they say, we need Jesus. We want Jesus. We want Yeshua. We love the Jewish brothers. But Judaism, no. God forbid. Let me tell you something, brothers. How will you find Yeshua village? Yeshua village if you reject. How will you find Yeshua home if you reject the village? You cannot find Yeshua unless you accept Judaism as a system. And this is something that the church needs to understand. Yeshua is the Son of God. In Exodus 4:22, it says that the Son of God is Israel. They are one in the same. We have to identify the village. We have to identify the door. We have to knock on the door. We have to restore honor and glory to Yeshua, to the groom, and bring them. For 2,000 years, the church has brought groom after groom after groom to the wedding with Israel. And the bride looked and said, what is that? This is not my groom. This groom, he worship on Sunday, not Shabbat. This groom eat pork and shrimp. That is not my beloved. Oh, this groom, he like to paint Easter bunny eggs. He doesn't even keep Pesach. Oh, this groom, he put a Christmas tree. He put a Christmas tree. But my groom will be celebrating Hanukkah. We have deformed the groom to the point that the groom feel ashamed. So the groom hide himself, like it says in the Song of Songs. He is so ashamed that he is hiding himself behind the wall, brothers and sisters. You don't believe me? Ask yourself the question, why would Joseph never went back to Jacob when he says, my father's still alive? What do you mean, Joseph? You had all the money and power. Why you never went back to Jacob? He never went back to Jacob, the rabbis tell us, because he was ashamed. And today he's ashamed to the point that it said that he is put in a prison cell. He put in a prison cell that he cannot come out of because the shame that brought upon his name. Today, it is the jobs of the 10 brothers. Yes, the 10 brothers in the story of Yaakov. Did you stop and think about it? The 10 brothers are the 10 Gentiles, are the 10 virgins. It is you, India. And God is calling you this evening, and He said to you this evening, will you know where you need to go out to? Do you know the task? Or do you just look at this virus and want to be raptured? No. He's coming back to His bride, Israel, And he's looking for the 10 brothers, to the 10 Gentiles, to the 10 sons of Yaakov, represent the Gentiles, and he's looking for them to restore honor to his name. So right now he's bringing this virus, and this virus is shaking it. Stop praying against it. Start understanding what God is doing right now in the world. Friends, stop with the conspiracy theories. Understand that this is the supervision of the mighty one of God. This is a supervision, and this is the word that is given to you. Look, friends, I want you to understand what God is saying to you today. Come out. Leave. We are in Parashat Bo. The word Bo means come. God is saying to you today, come out. Rabbi Shapira, I'm in Muslim background. Who cares? Goshen, the house of Israel, is big enough. Oh, I'm from a Buddhist. I'm from a Hindu. I'm a Catholic. Who cares? The house is ready. And when you return, Yeshua is returning with you. And today God is saying, I want Yeshua back home in the wedding, and I'm going to speed it up. So I'm sending this virus to prepare the world for the coming of the Messiah. I pray the Holy Spirit touching you. In a minute we're going to pray, and then we'll take your questions. Because God has started something now in India, and something new is happening. He released a prophetic word over India in Isaiah 58:12, and now we're going to see every old foundation. Listen to me. Every old foundation. Where are all those great churches now? Every old foundation will be taken down, and God will establish a new canopy with a new groom and a new bride. And you say, well, Rabbi Shapira, the virus affected Israel just as much as the nation. Number one, not really. But number two, did it dawn on you that he also used the virus to prepare the bride, to prepare Israel? The bride also have to be ready, because unless the bride says go, the wedding doesn't start. And Paul said that not all of Israel is Israel. And as a matter of fact, I read the reports today from Israel that there is such a panic to get the vaccine that people go and jump on the people that give the administrating the vaccine shot, that more people getting the corona just standing in line than those who are getting vaccinated. Guess what? We're building a new golden calf. God is going to deal also with the bride. But you, my Gentile friends, brothers and sisters, you have a job, a big business that is open today with the groom. Remember now that we understand this. Now we understand what does it mean to come out. Where are we to go out to? And now we understand what the 10 Gentiles holding to the tzitzit of the Jew mean. You need to come back home. You need to return to the covenants of the house of Israel. This is the time. And God is speaking to you right now. He's giving you an opportunity to return quickly. Don't stay in Egypt. It's not too late, brothers and sisters. In the book, I speak a lot about the mutation, and we see what Moses has to say in the mutation. How long is this going to be? I got an email this morning from France, because we just finished translating it for French. They wrote me, no need to write about COVID-19. In a few months, there will be no COVID-19, and we will return back to normal life. Brothers and sisters, let me tell you something. This is the beginning. And if we don't listen to his voice, if we don't hear his voice, this is just the beginning of the calamities that are ahead of us. And that's why this is the most important book you can put in your hands right now, except to the Bible, of course. That you need to come back. You need to know how to find Goshen. This is your coordinate. I'll help you to find Goshen, to find the house of Israel. See, the Israelites have the same problem that the nations have today. Look with me. God came in Exodus 6:6, 6:7, 6:8. He gave all these amazing promises to Israel. But I want you to notice, I have a warning for you this evening. I want you to read the response of the Jewish people when Moses came. Moses the Great come and said, I just heard from God. And let me tell you what God said. And he says, let me tell you what God said. And oh, by the way, listen to the response to what they said to Moses. It says, but when Moses, let's go to this slide. But when Moses told this to the Israelites, they would not listen to Moses. Their spirit crushed by cruel bondage. The spirit, I want you to highlight, you can come back to me. The spirit were crushed by something. And the question that you have to ask yourself, next slide, is this. Why was Moses rejected? Why was he rejected? What caused the rejection? Let's look at that together for a second, friends. Let's talk through this for a moment. Number one, and you can come back to me. Number one, the messenger was authentic. The messenger was Moses, and ultimately the message is God. The message is authentic. God is giving them the promise of redemption. And I want you to hear what I'm telling you. We who truly hold on to the new foundation, those of us who are returning right now, we know that the promise of God are eternal. But remember what I told you. The last redemption is going to resemble the first redemption. So the question is, why will the children of Israel, why would they reject such an amazing promise by God? And here is the reason why. Go to the next slide and let us read it together. What it says, והבאתי אתכם אל הארץ אשר נשאתי את ידי לתת אותה לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב, ונתתי אותה לכם, מורשה אני אדוני. I will bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you for a possession. I am the Lord. Now think about this. You can come back to me. This is one of the most shocking promise. Remember what I explained to you? What about the land? Then he says, I'm giving you the land. He says, I'm giving you salvation. How can a message of salvation be rejected from God himself? How can a message of salvation be rejected? You see, they didn't really want to come out. And the question is, why didn't they want to come out? What is the purpose behind this? Look with me in the Hebrew together, because let's give an example here. If I call Joseph Jones right now, and I say, I am the Bank of India, and I want to give you, Joseph John, $100 million. All what you have to do is bring your ID and a bank account and sign, and I give you $100 million. Now, what do you think Joseph would do if somebody called him and tell him that? He said, I'll be there right away. I come right now. But what if the bank called Joseph and says to him, hey, Joseph, you know this rich uncle of yours? He left you $100 million too. But you want the money? And Joseph said, yeah, of course I want the money. But then he says, oh, by the way, he left a list of conditions that you have to meet. Or Joseph said, what is it? He says, number one, you have to convert to Islam or to Buddhism. Number two, You have to declare that you will never be married, never have children. Number 3, you have to move across the world and run the business. There's a list of things that Joseph have to do. I think Joseph's reaction will be like, wow, I don't know about that. I'm not sure about I want to do this. Why this is important? Look with me what God is actually saying here. Go to the next slide. God says here we go. He says, I am giving you those things as a possession. Now this word possession is like the word inheritance. So I'm giving you all those things in the name of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Look at the very first word, and maybe we can bring the handy dandy tool. Go back to the next slide. You can bring the handy dandy tool. Go to the next slide again. You notice the letter mem in the top there. It's the word morasha. When God says, I am going to give you something as a morasha, it means that I'm going to give you something, but it's not for you right now. I'm going to give it to you in the future, your next generation. It's depend at the conditions. When will the Geulah will come? The Geulah will come when you meet the conditions. You notice the word below this? You notice the word Yerusha with the letter Yod. When you put the letter Yod before the word Rusha, you get something that will you get automatically. There's no question asked. There is nothing here. You're getting it by default. You can come back to me, and I want you to, or go to the next slide actually. Even go to the next slide. I want you to give you principle number 5. In order to receive the complete redemption, all conditions have to be met. Have to be met. Brothers and sisters, in order for the redemption to come, we need a groom, we need a bride, and we need the guests to do their parts. Without those parties, there is, please hear me, there is no redemption. Without those things. And here God is saying this. He's saying, I'm giving you all of those things. I'm giving you all the promises. The Geulah will come when you do your part. Well, you ask, what is the part? The part is coming out. Meeting God in the middle. You show up, He will show up. That's what He's doing right now in these plagues. We see in the same story. Even Yeshua Himself in Matthew chapter 23 said, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, I long together you like a hen that gather a chick. You're not willing to do so. Therefore, you will not see me until you say, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai. I'm paraphrasing. Well, Yeshua says, until you say Baruch haba, you will not see me. And you ask the question, what does it mean, Baruch haba? What does it mean, Baruch haba? Welcome in the name of the Lord. That's not what it means. Friends, in Judaism, when an important guest is coming to your house, you don't wait for the knocking at the door. You go outside. You meet him outside. You're waiting for him outside. That's what it means, Baruch haba. Baruch haba means that you look outside the window, every car passing by, every car, and you're getting ready to run out. You're preparing to run out. Come outside right now. Come outside to meet him. Come outside to come to his door. Come to meet him, friends. Today the Geulah, the redemption is depending at all of those things, those conditions being met. And God says, listen, until you are ready, I am not going to be ready. How can it be that a journey that took 2 months to get to the, literally to the land, end up taking 40 years? What slowed down the redemption? Not God, the people's ability to be ready. That's what caused the pain, the birth pain of entering into the land. And the question today, do we want the pain? The answer is no. We don't want the pain. We don't want that. I want Messiah to come. You want Messiah to come. I love this story that is told in the Talmud, and I share it in the book. It's a story of a woman and a husband and a wife, the wife of the rabbi. And the time is come, it is right before Shabbat. And the woman is cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. And it was a terrible snowy day at the synagogue. And the rabbi go upstairs to the attic. Right, there's a roof full of snow. He start to study and study and study. He get deep into the study, and the woman, his wife, is waiting and waiting and waiting. And she's doing everything. She's cooking and she's cleaning and she's washing. She's preparing to the coming of the Lord, her master, her husband. It's 5 minutes before Shabbat, 4 minutes before Shabbat. And the rabbi is so deep in his study, he doesn't pay attention to the time. 3 minutes before Shabbat, 2 minutes, 1 minute, boom, Shabbat is entered in. And this is a rabbi and a rabbitzin. She looked at the clock, and it's Shabbat, and he's not there. And this moment, she took the broom, she sat down, and she said to herself, he is not coming. He's not coming. He's not coming. And tears start shed from her eyes. The moment that this happened, the rabbi, all the roof, all the snow fell, make a hole in the roof, fell on the rabbi, and from the pressure, the rabbi fell through the ceiling of all the snow. Everything fell. The roof collapsed, fell on the rabbi. The rabbi fell through the roof to the hole and died on the exact spot. Now, is that a real story? It's a midrash. It's a midrash that comes to talk to us about the coming of the Messiah. Israel in the first redemption were not ready to receive the complete redemption. And because of that, they suffered for 40 years. India, how long do you want to suffer today? Those who watch us all over the world today, how much pains? The last thing you want to do right now is to talk about Satan and Satan. No! Focus on the Messiah world order, of the coming of the Mashiach, from the Geulah of the Mashiach. Let's focus on those things because he is coming soon. Without doubt, he is going to be here. Any day now. Don't put down the broom. Don't stop walking. Don't sit back and say he's going to rapture me, because that will cause him to stay behind for another 2,000 years. I want you to hear this with me today together. Remember where we started, Micah 7:15. And the mighty one of Israel described the first redemption like that. Next slide. He says, listen to this. That was for the day of the Lord, a night of vigil to bring them out of the land of Egypt. The same night is the Lord's one of vigil for all the children of Israel throughout the ages. Now, I want you to pay attention to these two terms here in Hebrew. First of all, as you see on the screen, he says, for the Lord. But look in the Hebrew. In Hebrew, remember, you read it upside down or reverse. It starts with the word Lel Shimurim. And notice that this term, Lel Shimurim, mentioned twice. Lel Shimurim, listen to what it says. Lel Shimurim, look at the next two words in white, Hu LeAdonai. This is a night of vigil for the Lord. And then it says in the next line in Hebrew, Alayla Hazeh, and then in big, LeAdonai Shimurim. A night of vigil for the Lord, a night of vigil for the Lord. Friends, come back to me, Sonny. Why is the text says a night of vigil once and a night of vigil twice? And the rabbi said the first night of vigil is the night that took place in Egypt. The second night of vigil is the night that will take upon when the coming of the Messiah will take place. Why is it in the night? When did the Mashiach come? Mashiach come when things are dark, when things are bleak. That's why I say he's come as a thief in the night. We are entering the most darkest time in human history right now, and we are going to be ushering the coming of the Mashiach. The reason this is called in Hebrew Lashon Kfula, the double tongue. It's called the double tongue because brothers and sisters, it's speaking about the first redemption and second redemption. Okay, just like we saw in Micah 7:15, talking about the past and he's talking about the future. Just like, by the way, I'll give you a little bit, I drop a hint in Micah chapter 9. He said, a child is given to us, a child is born unto us, a son is given to us. He's called a child, he's called a son. There is a connection here, very deep, that I take you through in the book. Now, who is the one who is bringing this redemption? Again, look at the text here. Lel Shimurim Hu LaAdonai. God is bringing it. And who is going to bring the second one? LaAdonai. Well, here you go, Rabbi Shapira. Remember what I told you a little bit ago? Wait, go back. Remember what I told you a minute ago, that a redemption is continuous all generation? Look what it says. When is this taking place in context? This is Exodus 12:42. It's taking place in one generation. If we want to be technical, it's one generation. Look at the last word in the text. Ledorotam. Dorotam is in plural. It is an exodus, brothers and sisters, is going to take place with every generation. Every generation is going to go through this exodus story. Why? Because you and I are right now in the last chapters, and everybody who has joined himself to the house of Israel is part of the redemption story. And my question to you this morning for you in India, do you want to be part of the redemption story? God says he is the one who is going to bring it. But guess what? God changed the time. Do you know that God hastened the redemption out of Egypt? I show it in the book. He brought it faster than it was. And there are two parts of this. God can bring redemption faster if we take the right action. The term that is used in Hebrew is the term shimurim. Let's understand what shimurim mean. Go to the next slide and I will explain it to you with a picture. This is what shimurim is. You see a picture of a can, a dry bean can. Now notice that the can have a manufacturing date. In this case, I think it's April the 9th, 14th, and it's have an expiration date. 4/9/17. Now let me explain this to you. There is a set time that the Geulah have to take place by. We know scripturally that the redemption have to take place before the year 6000. And right now we're in the year 5781. So in the very worst case scenario, the redemption, the final redemption have to take place within the next 230 years. Okay? Now, the term in Hebrew, Lel Shimurim, is exactly this. The night of preservation, like a can. And what God is saying, I turned the date. I changed the date. I brought the date forward. That's what God is saying. I changed the date for you. I have done this for you, Israel, because I've heard your cry. That's called grace. Don't think for a moment that God cannot change the time and the seasons. He can. Redemption is based upon God, but our actions are the one that's going to cause God to take a calculator. Listen, I read this this morning with Rashi, and it really ministered to me. Listen to what he says. He says this, and I want to quote it to you. He says, it is called the Laila Shimuim, like a night of Aken with expiration date, that it takes the time and change the time. And what is it says? It says the term Shimuim, and I quote Rashi, it says represent an element of waiting for something. It is a night of watching, a night when the Holy One, blessed be He, listen to that, was watching for and looking forward to with great expectation from the days of Abraham. How much you want Messiah to come, how much you want the redemption to come. Let me tell you a dirty secret. God has greater desire than any of us to see the complete redemption. But in order to see the complete redemption, He said, I need to have those conditions by my people being met. In step one, He said, no, I will take care of it all. And He took care of all of those things. So it seems that the future redemption, He will take care of everything. That's what the church believes in. But look how Exodus chapter 12 starts. Look what is He saying here. Look, go with me, and I want to actually go back 2 slides. One more. And He says that, no, right there. Go back to Exodus 12:42. And He said, I want you to highlight something, underline something important. That night, the redemption is for the Lord. But then He's talking about another night for the Lord. That's called night of vigil. I want you to pay close attention to those words. Hu le'Adonai. This is the night for the Lord. Okay? This is critical. Now, look at the beginning of Exodus chapter 12. Look at the beginning of Exodus 12. Go forward 2 slides. And look what it says at the beginning. It says this month, this is the month of Nisan. Again, what the word Nisan mean? The word Nisan mean a miracle. Miracle. Remember what it says in Micah 7:15? I will show you miracles. And look what it says. This month shall mark for you the beginning of all months. It shall be the first of the months of the year for you. Now, there is something that I want you to notice here. Remember what I explained to you. Go to the next slide. He uses this term here, Achodesh. Actually, go backward. One more thing. He said, this will be a new month for you. But if you notice in the Torah, if you notice the yellow, this word month in Hebrew is misspelled. The very first word, Chodesh. Chodesh, the very first word, he's missing the letter Vav. It's missing the letter Vav. So it's really read Chadash. Chadash, like Brit Chadasha. And if you go to the next slide, if you understand Hebrew, you understand that it should be spelled Chodesh, but it's actually spelled as Chadash. And there is a case of a missing Vav. There is something new that God is speaking here about. So if you go to the next slide, it says in the beginning, it says that the redemption is coming from you or for you. And then it says in Exodus 12:42 that the redemption is coming from the Lord or for the Lord. The Bible seem, you can come back to me, to give us a conflicting message. In one message it says that the redemption coming from you. But in another passage in Exodus 12, it says that the redemption is coming from God. So the question is, which one is it? Is the redemption coming from God or is coming from us? Let me explain to you that we are the one in the final redemption. We are the one who's going to trigger it. And that's why I say, you decide when is this month. You decide when you enter to the month of Nisan. You decide when the Geulah will come. You decide when you are leaving Egypt. I will carry the rest. We call it partnership. We call it covenant. And I am telling you today, each and every one of you need need to get the guide map today in your hand. Each and every one of you critical. We are in a mission critical right now to leave Egypt. India is leaving India and joining into the house of Israel, into Goshen. Goshen is being established in Hyderabad in the name of Yeshua. I declare it upon you today. God is moving you out. He's moving you out to find the groom. We have a case of a missing groom, and he's sending you out today to bring the groom. You see these words in Hebrew. Achodesh hazeh lachem, brothers and sisters. If you take this term, Achodesh hazeh lachem, go to the slide. It's equivalent to the number 424, which is the same number as Messiah, son of David, who is determined when the Mashiach, son of David, going to come to the world. Who is the one who is going to determine this? He's the one who said, this is my month of deliverance. Today I'm going out. Today I am living. He's saying, when you go out, Messiah ben David will appears in the world. When you Gentiles going out and crossing to the flesh and joining Goshen, we are going to leave Egypt on the way to the next Sinai for the final redemption. Hope the words today, this is a touch from the book. He's ministering to you today, this evening. You see, because I want to connect to you, especially for those of you in India. When I came to India last year, right before the pandemic, it was right before the pandemic, this word was released upon India. Listen to what the prophet says. It says, men from your midst, you can go, I have it, the last slide, shall rebuild ancient ruins. You shall restore foundations laid long ago. And you should be called repairer of the fallen walls, restorer of lines of habitation. If you refrain from trampling upon the Shabbat, from pursuing your affair on my holy day, if you call the Shabbat delight, the Lord's holy day honored, and if you honor it, and go not your ways, nor look to your own affair, nor strike bargains. Let me stop there for a moment. Let me stop there and explain to you what the prophet is telling us today. God is going to use, and you can come back to me, God is going to use a remnant. He did say, I will build from them. I will build from you. And I'm speaking to you today. I am going to build from you a new foundation. Right before Israel entered to the land, God said, remove all stones, put the stones, and write all 613 commandments on the stones, so that the nations will return to Zion. Those stones are established today, and they are now being carried into India, into Sri Lanka, into Malaysia, into Indonesia, into Australia. They are being carried by messengers that establishing a new stones, a new city, a new Goshen, a new Zion, wherever you're at. And the call right now for you, come inside. Because this is the house of Yeshua. Get him and restore him to the house of Israel today. Yeshua said the kingdom of God is at hand. And brothers and sisters, I'm telling you today that the virus is going to bring the kingdom of God one step closer if we just heed. In the book, I tell this story of the man named Joshua ben Levi. Friend, this is not about selling you a book. This is about you and I, and about the coming of the Messiah. In this story, there's a famous rabbi named Joshua, son of Levi. And he goes to meet Elijah the prophet. When he goes to meet Eliyahu Navi, and he asks him, when will Mashiach come? And he said, go and ask him. He said, where will I find him? You will find him at the gates of Rome. Joshua Levi was shocked and said, what? How will I recognize him? He said, he will be filthy. He will resemble a leper. And he will be there on the gates of Rome, taking the leprosy of his people. Joshua, son of Levi, went there and he seen banded and put in bandages. He said to him, to Messiah, when are you coming to Zion? When are you coming back? And the Messiah speak only scriptures. And he said, today. He answered in one word, today. Joshua, son of Levi, went back. And he waited in the village. He knew that the Messiah is coming today. He waited a day. He waited a week. He waited a month. Mashiach did not show up. He went back to Elijah and he told Elijah the story. Elijah says, go back and ask him what's happened. He said, the Messiah lied to me. He went back and he said, hey, Messiah, you liar. You lied to me. You said you're coming today. Why didn't you come to the house of Israel? The Messiah looked at him and he recited the rest of the passage from the book of Psalm. Today, come if you listen to my voice. You see the issue here? Yeshua, son of Levi, went back to the village, but he was like these foolish 5 virgins. He didn't prepare the house. He didn't prepare a welcoming committee. He just sat back and did nothing to await for him. And that's why he never came. My brothers and sisters, Mashiach is knocking. He's here. And he sent this terrible plague not to kill you. He loves you. He sent it. And we entered through a phase of judgment, of plagues, just like in the story, so that you come out. Each and every one of us coming out today is bringing the Messiah one step closer. Will we meet these conditions to get this inheritance that is promised to us? They are promised to us, but we have to do our part, and He will do His part. Come out today. It's not too late.